The announcement was prepared. The name had already been placed inside the ceremonial folder. Senior aides were waiting for the signal. But before Queen Camilla could publicly name her son, Tom Parker Bowles, as royal patron of a new crown-linked food and heritage initiative, Prince William stepped forward and stopped the appointment. No consent had been secured. No final authority had been granted. And in one frozen moment, a private family ambition became a royal crisis. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. William entered carrying a sealed briefing note, his face unreadable. He moved toward the equerry, the official responsible for managing the ceremony, and asked him to pause before the announcement began. The request was calm. The effect was not. Representatives stopped speaking. Courtiers turned toward the prince. Members of royal household, convinced the appointment had been approved, realized that something inside the palace had gone wrong. Camilla did not move at first. She had expected the reception to confirm Tom as patron of the Crown Food and Heritage Trust, a new royal-backed organization created to support British farming, traditional food, and hospitality. Instead, William told her that the appointment could not proceed. Charles had not signed the approval page. The Royal Council, the small group responsible for formally reviewing Crown decisions, had never been asked to authorize it. Charles had said otherwise, but without those steps, the title carried no authority. Tom stood beside the ceremonial table, with one hand resting near the folder that contained his name. Then he drew it back. The humiliation was immediate. He had entered believing he was about to accept a public duty connected to the monarchy. Now he understood that the role might have been offered before anyone with final power had truly approved it. Camilla looked toward her son, and the confidence in her face hardened into disbelief. William felt every eye pressing against him, yet he refused to retreat. Allowing the announcement to continue would have turned an unfinished proposal into an official royal act, creating a precedent that could not easily be erased. Camilla believed Charles had supported the idea during a private conversation. The prince answered that encouragement was not consent, and affection could not replace a signature. Silence swallowed the room. Then Camilla stepped closer and asked whether William was challenging the appointment or challenging her right to propose it at all. What began as a blocked announcement was about to become something far more personal, because behind the missing signature stood four people with very different ideas of loyalty, family, and royal duty. For William, the dispute was about protecting the monarchy from private influence. For Camilla, it was about refusing to let her family remain permanently outside the royal circle. For Tom, the halted appointment became a humiliation, witnessed by people who had already begun treating him as a future patron. And for Charles, still unaware of how violently the plan had unraveled, the crisis would force an impossible choice between the woman beside him and the son destined to inherit everything. William carried the burden of what came next. As Prince of Wales, the title given to the monarch's direct heir, he was expected to protect the institution he would one day lead. To him, a crown-linked patronage had to represent public service, not family closeness. Every appointment had to survive questions from the press, the public, and the charities whose reputation depended on royal support. Camilla saw the matter differently. She had watched her relatives remain close enough to attend private gatherings, yet distant enough to be excluded from formal royal life. Tom had spent years writing about food, agriculture, and hospitality. She believed the role recognized that work. She did not see it as a gift. She saw it as long-delayed respect. Tom stood alone after the reception was paused, unable to look toward the presentation table. Staff members quietly removed his name card and carried away the folder prepared for him. Minutes earlier, courtiers had congratulated him. Now those same people avoided his eyes, and the silence made the humiliation feel sharper. Camilla found him before he left. She told him he had done nothing wrong and promised that the mistake would be corrected. Tom did not raise his voice. He simply told her that every defense made the rejection feel more public. His words stopped her completely. She had wanted to lift her son into recognition, yet she had placed him at the center of a palace struggle. William sought Catherine soon afterward. In a private conversation, he showed her documented draft proposals that went beyond Tom's appointment. Other members of Camilla's family were being considered for future crown initiatives. Catherine understood immediately. This was no longer about one title. It was about whether royal boundaries were being tested before William's eventual accession, the moment he would inherit the throne. Charles knew none of that when a handwritten message reached him. The note said only that William had stopped the ceremony. It gave no reason. The king read it twice, then summoned his wife and his son at once. Before Charles could decide who had crossed the line, he first had to discover when the line had begun to move, and the answer led back to one private dinner that changed everything. The confrontation had not begun with an unsigned document. It began 3 weeks earlier, during a small dinner at Clarence's house, when Camilla placed a handwritten proposal beside Charles's plate and asked him to consider bringing Tom into formal royal service. The king did not sign it. He did not reject it either. Instead, he said 5 words that would later be interpreted in completely different ways. "Let us see what works." Camilla heard permission. William would see dangerous ambiguity. Camilla had chosen that evening carefully. She presented Tom as the natural patron of the Crown Food and Heritage Trust, because his career had long connected him to British food, farming, and hospitality. A royal patron is a public figure who lends status and attention to an organization, and she believed his experience made the choice practical rather than personal. Charles read the handwritten proposal slowly, while she waited for a clear answer. Charles felt the weight of an exhausting day pressing against him. His red dispatch box, the secure case used to carry official state documents, remained beside him as he placed the proposal near it, without adding his signature. "Let us see what works," he said again, believing officials would examine the idea before anything moved forward. The monarch thought he had agreed to a review. Camilla believed he had given preliminary approval. Camilla left the dinner with quiet confidence. She began discussing the appointment with members of her household, certain that formal confirmation would follow. Charles returned to other duties and did not realize that his careful uncertainty had been transformed into a command. That misunderstanding mattered, because one vague sentence from the sovereign could move staff, schedules, and ceremonial plans before anyone stopped to question its meaning. William learned of the proposal several days later during a private briefing. The prince felt blindsided that an appointment involving the Queen's son had advanced without a formal review or any discussion with him. A courtier then disclosed through a documented briefing note that invitations were already being prepared, even though the council secretary had received no request for authorization. William demanded the draft paperwork. He turned through the pages until he reached the approval sheet and found an empty space where Charles's signature should have been. Palace staff had not acted on a completed royal order. They had acted on an assumption. Then the final warning arrived. The announcement was scheduled for the following morning. William had only hours to choose between silence and confrontation. By the time William entered the reception, hesitation was no longer possible, and when Charles summoned them both, the missing signature became the least painful subject in the room. The doors closed. The aides were dismissed. Charles stood between his wife and his eldest son as the argument that everyone had feared finally erupted. Camilla accused William of humiliating her family in front of palace officials. William answered that she had attempted to create a royal appointment without the crown's completed consent. Then Charles looked down at the unsigned page placed before him, and the silence that followed was more devastating than either accusation. Charles remained beside the low table, forcing himself to stay calm. The king's private sitting room, a personal space used for sensitive conversations away from official staff, now held only 3 people and one unfinished appointment file. No communications officers remained to soften their words. No advisors could interrupt. He asked William to explain exactly what had happened, and the prince answered without raising his voice. William described the prepared announcement, the waiting guests, and the absence of council approval. The Royal Council was the formal group expected to review major crown decisions before they carried official authority. He then pointed to the empty signature line. Charles had never completed the order. Allowing the ceremony to continue, he argued, would have transformed a private misunderstanding into a public royal act that the palace might struggle to reverse. Camilla turned toward him, anger breaking through her restraint. She said he had no right to stop her in front of Tom. Her son had stood before officials who had already treated him like a confirmed patron, only to be stripped of that dignity without warning. William answered that the humiliation would have been worse if the truth had emerged after the appointment became official. The future king did not apologize for stopping it, but the pain in her accusation clearly reached him. Charles looked at his wife and asked why she had proceeded after their dinner. Camilla reminded him of the words he had spoken and said she believed he trusted her judgment. He answered quietly, almost painfully, that consideration was not consent. The king knew his vague response had helped create the crisis, yet he could not allow uncertainty to become authority. William then placed a second paper beside the unsigned file. The internal planning note described Tom as the first family-linked patron, suggesting that other relatives might later receive crown-backed roles. Camilla immediately denied authorizing that phrase. She insisted her proposal concerned only her son's experience, not a wider family plan. Charles read the sentence twice. Someone had expanded the meaning of Camilla's request, turning one appointment into a possible precedent. The king ordered the patronage suspended at once, then told his wife to leave and asked William to remain. The clash had exposed the emotions, but emotion alone could not settle the matter. The next battle would be fought over authority, precedent, and the future limits of royal power. Royal power does not always arrive with a raised voice. Sometimes it appears as a single unsigned page, a missing seal, or a chair left empty at the council table. As Charles examined the patronage rules with William beside him, the truth became unavoidable. The Queen could recommend a name, but she could not transform a member of her private family into an official crown representative alone. The final authority belonged to the sovereign, and the future consequences would eventually belong to the heir. Charles kept his attention on the papers before him. A crown-linked appointment was a role publicly connected to the monarchy, and it required more than personal approval spoken across a dinner table. The sovereign had to give clear consent, officials had to examine the proposal, and advisors had to confirm that no private relationship could damage the organization's independence. Without those protections, one family favor could weaken public trust in every royal charity that followed. William understood the danger immediately. As Prince of Wales, the title held by the direct heir to the throne, he did not possess the authority to approve or reject the appointment himself. His duty was different. He had to protect the long-term credibility of institutions that might continue under his future reign. If he remained silent now, the precedent could one day become his burden. Charles asked him to leave the room for several minutes. The king remained alone with the unsigned file, rubbing the edge of the page as the full cost of his earlier hesitation settled over him. His vague words had allowed staff to move forward. His silence had given Camilla confidence. Now either choice would hurt someone he loved. Charles knew that rejecting the appointment would wound his wife and humiliate Tom again. Yet approving it after William's warning would make the monarchy appear willing to bend its standards for family. The king could protect Camilla's feelings, or he could protect the boundary that gave royal patronage its meaning. He could not fully protect both. The council secretary then delivered a documented review of the trust's founding charter, the written rules controlling how the organization must operate. One clause was absolute. No patron could benefit from a direct family relationship with the senior royal overseeing the initiative. William returned as a second draft was placed before them. It named Camilla as senior royal sponsor, while Tom would serve beneath her as patron. The arrangement created the exact conflict the charter forbade. Charles reached for his pen, but he did not approve the appointment, and he did not bury the matter quietly. Instead, he ordered a formal notice that would immediately change the Queen's plans. When the written decision left the king's desk, the argument stopped being a family disagreement, and the consequences began moving through the palace one room at a time. The first consequence was almost silent. An aide entered the reception room, lifted Tom's engraved place card from the ceremonial table, and carried it away before the doors reopened. The guests were told that the patronage announcement had been postponed. But inside the family apartments, everyone understood the truth. Charles had frozen the appointment indefinitely, ordered a review of all family-linked proposals, and left Camilla facing the one outcome she had fought hardest to avoid her son's public rejection. Charles issued a formal internal instruction before anyone could restart the reception. The order suspended Tom's proposed appointment and required every future patronage involving a relative of a working royal to face an independent review, meaning an examination by advisors with no family interest in the outcome. The king wanted the boundary made unmistakable. No private relationship would again be allowed to move ahead of written consent. Palace staff acted immediately. They removed Tom's biography from the prepared materials, canceled the announcement, and informed the charity representatives that the patron's position would remain vacant. Moments earlier, those guests had expected celebration. Now they were given careful explanations and asked to leave without answers. The silence protected the monarchy, but it deepened the humiliation inside the family. Tom received the final decision from Camilla in a private corridor. He tried to sound unaffected, telling her that the role had never officially belonged to him. Then his voice weakened. He asked whether anyone had truly wanted him there, or whether he had simply become useful to a larger plan. The queen consort assured him that she had believed in his work, but he answered that belief was not the same as permission. Camilla returned to her room after he left and sat without removing her gloves. Anger pulled her toward William. Disappointment pulled her toward Charles. Shame remained closest of all. She had wanted to raise her son standing, yet her ambition had exposed him to whispers, withdrawn congratulations, and a rejection he had never requested. William faced a different punishment. Several courtiers told him through a documented internal briefing that senior staff blamed him for stopping the ceremony so abruptly. They argued that the prince could have challenged the plan privately and spared everyone the spectacle. Catherine listened as he described the criticism. She warned that it would grow unless the palace admitted the appointment had lacked approval. William refused. Releasing the missing signature and private dinner details would defend him, but it would publicly embarrass both Charles and Camilla. Night brought one final message. Camilla sent William a handwritten request asking him to meet her alone, without the king, aides, files, or advisors between them. For the first time since the crisis began, the future king and the queen would face each other without procedure to hide behind, and what passed between them would decide whether the family fractured or changed. There were no secretaries in the room, no unsigned papers, no king standing between them. Camilla waited beside an unlit fireplace as William entered and closed the door himself. She did not ask him to reverse the decision. Instead, she asked one question. Had he stopped the appointment because the process was wrong, or because he would never accept her family near the crown? His answer would determine whether this remained a procedural dispute or became a wound neither of them could repair. William had agreed to meet because the public confrontation had settled nothing between them. The prince understood that procedure had hidden the deeper accusation. Camilla believed her son had been rejected, not for what he had done, but for who his mother was. That distinction mattered. One answer protected royal standards. The other would condemn her family to permanent suspicion. Camilla spoke before he could defend himself. She said she had never wanted Tom to become royal. She wanted his years of work in food, farming, and charity to be judged without her marriage automatically making him unacceptable. The queen consort had watched his experience become both qualification and weakness. Close enough to the crown to attract attention, he was still too close to escape accusations of favor. William listened, then admitted why he had acted so abruptly. He feared the patronage would create a precedent, meaning an example that later sovereigns might be pressured to follow. Once one relative entered a crown-backed role through private approval, others could demand the same path. His objection, he said, concerned the method and the conflict of interest, not Tom's ability or character. Camilla did not let him escape the human cost. She told him that stopping the ceremony in front of her son had been cruel, even if the constitutional decision was correct. The future king paused. He had protected the institution, but he had also allowed Tom to discover his rejection before watching officials. William acknowledged that the manner of his intervention had caused pain that could have been avoided. Camilla then disclosed through the private conversation that she had never written the phrase, "first family-linked patron." A palace advisor had inserted those words into the planning note to present the appointment as part of a wider modernization strategy. She had proposed one role. Officials had quietly turned it into a new royal direction. William finally understood the trap. Advisors had treated Charles's uncertain words as permission, while both he and Camilla had been pushed toward confrontation by plans neither had fully authorized. Camilla agreed not to challenge the suspension. William promised that Tom could still be considered for independent charitable work without a royal title, crown control, or inherited privilege. Their agreement did not restore the lost patronage, but it changed the meaning of William's intervention, and when the story reached the public, that distinction would shape the verdict outside the palace. By morning, the private dispute had escaped the palace. One newspaper carried a full-width headline, "The Patronage That Never Was." Beneath it appeared a photograph of William leaving the reception with a sealed folder under his arm, while Camilla entered a separate car without looking toward him. Outside Buckingham Palace, a small crowd gathered behind the barriers, some praising the prince for defending royal standards, others accusing him of humiliating the king's wife and her son. The argument spread faster than the palace could contain it. News programs framed the crisis as a test of whether public service could remain separate from personal family advancement. That distinction mattered because a royal patronage was not merely an honorary title. It gave an organization status, access, and public trust through its connection to the crown. If such roles appeared to be family rewards, every royal charity could face suspicion. Broadcasters reconstructed the suspended ceremony throughout the morning. They focused on the missing signature, the absent approval, and William's decision to intervene before Tom's appointment became official. Some commentators called the future king disciplined. Others called him ruthless. Yet every account returned to the same question: should closeness to Camilla have carried any influence at all? Camilla watched one broadcast alone. She remained silent as a presenter described the episode as a crushing defeat for her influence inside the palace. Then she turned off the television. Charles found the dark screen later and understood immediately. The Queen Consort was not grieving only for a lost appointment. She was grieving because the world now saw her attempt to support her son as an abuse of power. William faced another kind of guilt. Footage showed Tom being followed by photographers, while reporters shouted questions about favoritism and rejection. The prince had acted to protect the monarchy, but the pressure had fallen upon a man who had never signed the paperwork, issued an order, or claimed the role publicly. That contrast unsettled him. The palace finally released a formal statement, a short official message used to establish the crown's position without exposing private conversations. It confirmed that the patronage had not completed the required approval process and that no appointment had ever formally been made. Charles approved every word. The statement blamed neither Camilla nor Tom, and it did not praise William. By protecting all three, the king quietly accepted responsibility for allowing an unclear private conversation to become an institutional crisis. Public debate slowly settled around a difficult verdict. William's intervention had been severe, but allowing an unauthorized family appointment to proceed would have caused deeper damage. Once the headlines faded, only the final decision remained, and it would define not merely who had won the argument, but what kind of monarchy William intended to inherit. The final verdict did not arrive through another confrontation. It arrived when Charles signed a revised patronage code, closed the folder, and placed the pen between William and Camilla. Tom Parker Bowles would not receive the crown-linked role. The trust would appoint an independent public figure instead. And from that day forward, no close relative of a working royal could receive an official patronage without written sovereign consent and external review. The crisis ended not with victory, but with a boundary. Charles formally canceled the proposed appointment and approved rules that could not be misunderstood. The revised patronage code, the written standards controlling how official royal representatives are chosen, required clear authorization from the sovereign, an independent conflict review, and documented advice from the royal council whenever a close relative was involved. The king had allowed uncertainty to create the crisis. Now he used that failure to make repetition impossible. The Crown Food and Heritage Trust survived. Its leaders selected an independent public figure with no family connection to the royal household, preserving the organization's mission while removing every suspicion of private favor. The project moved forward, but the role once prepared for Tom was gone permanently. Charles apologized to Camilla during a private conversation. He admitted that his vague words at Clarence House had sounded like permission when he had intended only consideration. The Queen Consort accepted that his hesitation had exposed both her and her son. She did not pretend the loss no longer hurt, but she stopped fighting the decision. William later spoke directly with Tom. The prince acknowledged that interrupting the ceremony publicly had caused humiliation that could have been avoided. He did not offer the royal title again. Instead, Tom accepted a position supporting an independent food charity in his professional capacity, free from crown control and accusations of inherited privilege. Camilla still demanded one final truth from William. She told him he had been constitutionally right, but personally harsh. The future king agreed. He had defended the monarchy, yet he had forgotten that correct decisions could still wound innocent people. In return, she admitted that allowing an unsigned appointment to proceed would have crossed a line the crown could not defend. Charles then made the final position unmistakable. William had not overruled the sovereign. He had stopped palace officials from presenting an unfinished proposal as a completed royal command. Camilla lost the patronage battle, but preserved her dignity by accepting the boundary. William strengthened his authority, but learned to balance duty with compassion. Charles restored order by turning his own ambiguity into a lasting safeguard. And so the appointment that never happened became something more enduring. The moment the monarchy declared that closeness to the crown could open palace doors, but it could never replace consent, accountability, or duty. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.